All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Stephen Casco, and I'm the founder and publisher of the online trade publication RPA Today, Robotic Process Automation Today. And I first want to start off by thanking SmartBridge for sponsoring today's educational session and connecting us with our featured speaker for today's webinar. Our featured speaker is Jesse Carrillo, and he's the Chief Information Officer for Heinz. And Heinz is a global real estate development company that handles investment and management of properties around the world. And they're based in Houston, Texas. And Jesse has been with Heinz for, I think, just over 26 years. He's moved from promotion to promotion to promotion inside that organization. He's currently the CIO, and as you can tell by our first slide, just like me, a bit of a sci-fi geek. But I mention these promotions because before he was the CIO, he was the Chief Technology Officer. And before that, the Director of Application Development. And before that, the Manager of Application Development. And before that, he was an actual developer. So no matter who you may be on the other end of this presentation, the chances are really, really high that Jesse has been in your role previously. So he's someone you can look to and learn from, regardless of your position, age, or experience, or the type of company you may be with, whether it's a private, publicly traded company, or even someone working for a government agency. So Jesse, I want to thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule to be with us. I'm going to be happy to drive the slides for you. And why don't you take a moment to tell the audience a bit more about yourself, Heinz, and we can give that great example of the automation project your team is working on. So the floor is yours.
Hey, Steve, man. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you and speak to this topic. And for anybody out there, try not to do the math and then, figure out how old I am. But I am a sci-fi geek along with Steve. So really enjoy these kind of conversations. But yeah, so again, I'm, as Steve alluded to, I've been with Heinz for almost 27 years. And Heinz itself is a global commercial real estate firm, predominantly office, but also industrial and residential and a smattering of retail. We are actually in 255 cities and 27 countries. So I had the opportunity over those 27 years to see the firm really grow, especially on the global front. Quite a few development projects where we're designing office buildings. We're actually designing our new office here in Houston. We're based out of Houston. We're moving downtown in Q2, and we've designed a brand new building for us for our new headquarters, Texas Tower. It's going to be amazing. It's going to have unbelievable technology and spaces. So excited for that move. Heinz is a company. We're about 4,800 employees, a little bit more than that. Again, to 27 countries and 83 billion of investments, assets under management. And so again, just being a global, big firm, we have a lot of challenges where robotic process automation can really, help us out. And so one of the ones that I did want to chat about today is the one we're working on with our AP processing. And so Heinz being a global firm, we don't have a centralized AP processing, team within the firm. Pretty much every department, every property kind of processes their own AP. We do have a centralized ERP system, and we do have a centralized AP processing system, but the actual act of entering the invoices and coding them is very manual intensive and very siloed based on who's doing the entry. And so as we started looking at how do we deploy additional RPAs beyond the ones we had deployed already through the help of SmartBridge with our global records management team, we have a records management team that we applied the first RPA using UiPath, and that was how we introduced the platform. We started looking at what was next, and when we looked at what folks were doing with the AP processing, we realized that was definitely an easy target to go after, and so that's where we went next. And so working with SmartBridge, what they've done is they took a look at our processes, again, very manual. We're getting invoices with email, we're getting some through DocuSign, where we're getting some in the mail still. If you can imagine, in 2021, there's still invoices coming through the mail. And so the teams would basically, every department, every building would have to, go grab them, code them, put them into, their workflow process, have them approved, and then finally end up in our ERP system. But there was so much manual work being involved and over and over again. And so including in IT and my team. And so what we decided is let's take a look at what we can do with robotic process automation, especially as SmartBridge really started describing what they call, I guess UiPath calls document understanding. Because one of the challenges we had previously when looking at solutions like this is OCR just wasn't where it needed to be. There was always, there was still not enough accuracy. And so you ended up spending most of your time reviewing and editing and fixing. And so they really didn't feel like you gained much efficiency. And so as UiPath's document understanding was more explained to us, it became apparent that this may be a difference maker. And so we said, worked with SmartBridge and said, sure, let's partner, let's figure out what we can do. And so on this slide, you'll see is probably your traditional, kind of AP process or AP invoice processing diagram. But again, I described that we were getting all our invoices, you were trying to, process them. With the UiPath solution, we're able, now what we've done is streamlined it so they all show up in a digital format in one folder. The robot can then go grab all those documents from that one folder. And so we've changed our business process to make sure that we always put them in that folder, whereas before, the folks helping me with the invoices would maybe, keep them in their email, upload them, here and there. But now we've got a single place to put them. We drop them in there. We don't have to do it, once a week or twice a week. As soon as you drop one in there, the robot's always listening. And so that was different. I mean, again, we were so used to, saying, okay, it's this time of the month, we got to go on this day, we got to enter them, and then by this day, they got to be ready for approval, and then by this day, they get paid. And so the ability to have the robot just listening all the time just makes it so much easier, and you don't forget an invoice. Too many times you forget an invoice because you forgot that it was in an email or you forgot to process it. And so being able to say, here's an invoice, I do something with it, I put it in a folder, and then the robot takes over. It's just been fantastic. And then with the document understanding capabilities of it being able to do machine learning, we're able to define what an invoice looks like for a vendor. And so we take vendor A and we say, these are the invoices for a vendor. And we go and we identify where the certain metadata fields are that we want captured for our AP invoice system in our ERP. And so we tag it in that particular invoice. And then we do that a couple times over and over again. And then the machine learning AI robot takes over and says, okay, if I see an invoice and it's got the fields all in this area and it's got this type of name, then it must be, vendor A. And so it says, okay, this is your vendor, and then this is how I process that vendor. And so we taught it, 15 or plus vendors how to read those specific invoices. And even if a vendor sent you different kind of invoices, because maybe once a quarterly or once a weekly or different services, you just teach it the different ones, but it remembers which vendor it belongs to. And so for us, having that ability within UiPath to teach it was huge. And I would say the second thing that excited us about and that SmartBridge really educated us about is because of the way the UiPath tool is designed, and I think they call it the Action Center, I think is what it's called. I think it's listed in there.
Yeah.
But it's a tool that can be used by non-geeky technical people like me, right? And so, I'm a coder, I'm a programmer, and a lot of times we try to complicate things, and because we want a program to do everything. But the way the UI is designed, exactly. Steve gets it. Yeah, it's like yeah.
There's always a coding solution for everything, right?
Exactly. But the Action Center, the way they've designed it, it's really drag and drop. It's point and click. It's kind of, if you ever use DocuSign or EchoSign or one of those Adobe Sign, you just drag your signature box, you just drag your name box. So same thing here. You just highlight the invoice number, you highlight the PO number, you highlight the name, the address, the GL account number, whatever you need, and then all of a sudden it learns what that invoice looks like. And so being able to have a non-geeky, techie type person be able to just kind of scan and do the invoice reading and analyzing is huge, because as we're learning and we're looking at other departments that don't have, it doesn't become an IT function, right? You don't have to have an IT member be the one that teaches the robot to learn. And that's fantastic. And so to me, that's one of the things that excited us about this new document understanding from UiPath. And so we've been putting that to the test. And then again, we were able to then use a database of our standard GL codes and how to code things. And so when you take that database along with what the robot has pulled from the metadata and match the two together, now we can send the information to the AP system and to our ERP or accounting system with almost little interaction, right? And so if we add a new GL account, you just add it to the database and you link them together. If we add a new business unit in our GL system, we link them together, and then it just allows you to have this metadata and this database on the side that just drives the process. And then on a rare occasion where you get an invoice that is different, maybe the vendor changed something or it's a new vendor, again, then you have the Action Center. And so if there is an error, then you just, someone can go to the Action Center, they get a notification, they see what the error is, they fix it, keep the process going. But now by fixing it, you just taught the robot, how to learn more. And so again, it becomes an iterative process that throughout the whole thing.
So did you just in this area? Sorry to stop you. In this area, were you, as you were rolling it out, were you auditing and saying, okay, this is 90% accurate, now it's 95% accurate, or how did that kind of happen?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great question because one of the things that we tried, and again, having a partner like SmartBridge is amazing because they said, okay, well here's what we could try first and see what you think, and then we can try this. And so one of the things we tried was more of an out of the box, the machine learning AI robot. And UiPath comes with really nice ones, but we tried out of the box and said, okay, well, let's try that, right? That's the easy way to do it, get it up and running, give us a great proof of concept. But we realized very quickly it was like 55% accurate, and so we were like, okay, well, that's for us. And you end up back where we were back in the old days with the OCR not being as accurate. So as we started looking at what could SmartBridge do to, help configure, customize it even stronger, that's where the secret sauce of someone like a SmartBridge or another implementer came in, right? Because we are not the experts in UiPath, we're not the experts in these technologies, and having them be able to say, okay, well, here's what the out of box gives you, but if you let us really fine tune it for Heinz, then you'll get higher and higher accuracy. And so I'd say we're probably at 90-95% accuracy right now with IT. Wow. And I didn't want to try to roll this out beyond IT until we can get closer to the 90-95% accuracy, because I didn't want this to become a support issue where other departments are having to come to us all the time because the robot's not working, right? And so I wanted to get to over 90% accuracy, and that's where we are today. And that's why it's exciting to see now that we're ready to start moving into other departments. But yeah, I mean, it's a great example of you can prototype with what you get out of the box, but every firm has got to look at what is about your setup, your processes, and leverage the smart people to get it all configured for you.
And two quick follow-ups on this slide. When you say that level of accuracy, that's around the world, I'm assuming, right? That's not just in one location. And the other question I had is that all in English, or is that accuracy in multiple languages?
Well, again, I'll answer it a different way. So again, we're focused on the invoice IT processes. And so to answer your question, we do get invoices from all over the world. And so we do process, but it's our team processing them. We've hit a couple of foreign language ones, but in most cases, most of our invoices that we process in IT are in English.
Gotcha.
So now we've been told, and again, this is where proof of concept comes in handy, but we've been told that UiPath can handle different languages because again, the beauty is you're tagging the location and what you're reading, and so if it's Spanish and it's an invoice number in Spanish, you just teach it that if you see this word, it means invoice number in English, and here's where the number is. And so at some point, it's not going to care what the language is. It could be Klingon. It doesn't matter. Since we're all sci-fi geeks here, but so it won't matter because again, it'll be kind of recognition, right? It recognizes a word and it knows this is the metadata. And so we're excited to test it out. But at least from being able to process in English other invoices with different currencies, we've been able to do that.
And the Romulans aren't going to send an invoice, right? So should we go to the next slide?
But they're just going on payment. They don't need any proof. They just want the payment, right? Nothing that's anything else, right? All right. But anyway, to wrap it up, from a results again on the slide, you can see, it was very manual intensive as I described earlier. A lot of hands-on, potential error. Again, we unfortunately we would forget some invoices because they got lost in somebody's email when they went on vacation and they forgot to extract it. And so, being able to now have one bot that can just sit there, listen, learn. And again, it's amazing. It's really cool what we always, we've been talking about AI and ML, machine learning and artificial intelligence for a lot of years now, but it is cool to see it. The more you feed it, the more you feed it, the more you feed it, the more it learns. And so I think that's the cool thing about having this bot. And we've been able to do it with one bot right now. As we expand, we may, for performance reasons, or again, if there's uniqueness with certain languages or certain countries, we may have to deploy more bots. But for now, one bot seems to be working well, and we think it can scale significantly before we have to think about another bot. So the hours
you're maximizing your investment. You're maximizing the time on that one bot.
Yeah, no, it's again, I think the way UiPath does their bots or the way they license their bots, it's more around the number of jobs and the time you want to run them. And so again, if you have jobs, because I do have another bot for the global records team that's independent of this bot, and because it runs at different hours and different times, and so that will dictate when you think a new bot is needed. The batch jobs as you run them, is it on demand, and also perform, making sure that the jobs do finish and don't interrupt other processes. So and so the hours saved, again, it was more of a really estimate about how much time was being spent with all that manual processing, opening up envelopes, digitizing all that, and again the potential back and forth when we forgot an invoice or we made a mistake, and then all of a sudden you get a lot of time wasted. And so that's where I kind of calculated the hours saved. And again, the 90% improvement is just because of the accuracy, and again, it's you can my AP folks can sleep better at night because they didn't forget an invoice. They got it. It's dropped in the folder, or it automatically comes from the vendor right into the folder, and it just magically happens unless there's an error.
Okay. Excellent. So let's maybe spend some time on the lessons you learned along the way. Which one of these points would you like to begin with first?
Well, I mean, I think again, one of the things that a lot of times, and even we were guilty of it when we really started looking at RPAs and when we implemented the global records team, is we looked at it more as a point solution. It's like, okay, an RPA is, and I use the term around here is, macros on steroids. I'm a programmer, and you can do a lot with macros. And so, when we first started looking at RPAs, it's like, okay, well, it's almost like a macro. You have to have a coder, and you improve a process and just throw it here. But I think what we started to learn, especially as with UiPath and with SmartBridge's help, is it's really a platform, right? And so as a platform, you really have to have a strategy around automation. So you can't just go, and again, you can do it with UiPath. You can get a license and start doing your own individual RPAs. But for an organization, you really have to look at it as another ERP type, CRM type platform. Just like you would with your servers or your messaging system. This is the backbone of what you want to do. Have a strategy across the globe as you implement the platform. And so even though you may not deploy RPA across the globe on day one, but make sure that your platform is designed for scalability, international, everything that you're going to potentially need it to do. Make sure you do that up front. Otherwise, you're going to end up redoing a lot of stuff. And, being in, I'll just use our example, commercial real estate. We have to build the solid foundation. We have to build the solid outside of the building, and then we try to build the inside. Right. You don't want to have to try to undo the foundation when you're 40 stories up, right? And so same thing here is, you don't want to do that. And take out of business quickly. But take your time, really focus on that, the strategy and the foundation, and then I think it's just so much easier to load the RPAs on top. So I'd say that's an important one. And then I'll just mention a couple others. The second one I think is important because a lot of times RPA projects come in as IT projects, and so we try to convince folks, hey, I know we can automate this and automate that, but one of the things we were challenged at Heinz is because again we're in 27 countries, that there's so many different lines of business. We're office, we're industrial, and we have development, asset management, property management. And so IT trying to speak the language has been really tough, when you try to speak all the different languages of the business lines. And so one of the things we did a few years ago is we created a group called the Business Technology Group that's led by a very strong individual who has, property management, accounting, investment management, fund management experience. And so having that individual build a team made up of non-IT people, but that have an IT knack, but actually worked in the field and understand that, being able to align with them and use them in this journey was probably the most powerful thing that we could do. Because again, it didn't become just an IT initiative, an IT mission. It became an IT imperative that we have to work together. So to me, that was a huge thing. So as you guys are thinking about, how do we implement RPAs, especially around that change management, think about people first, then technology. It's not about replacing someone's job. It's about freeing them up, because we all run lean shops, right? And so how do we free people to do more value add? And that's where the RPA journey is really important. So I think, having that strong champion IT business alignment, creating a culture of innovation and process improvement, I think is what RPAs were designed for. And so that's, I think, the main thing. You can read the rest of these, but I think, just again, and then number 8, even though it's number 8 there, but definitely align with a strategic partner, someone that really knows what they're doing here to really accelerate your journey.
Excellent. Well, we've got, I think, 1 or 2 nuts and bolts questions coming in from the audience. and I have a couple of organizational questions for you. So if you don't mind, and if you don't mind, we're going to jump into it. So one question comes in: at what point did you augment your pure RNA with document understanding AI component? Question mark. Right away or after your proof of concept? So when did you really start tying it all together, basically?
I'm sorry, can you read that one more time?
Sure. At one point, did you augment your pure RPA with document understanding AI component? At what time did you start bringing those two things together?
Okay. Yeah, so I think if I'm answering the question, it was kind of like what I said earlier about basic RPA, the kind of out-of-the-box RPA. We did also try
50/50. Yep.
global records, and so again, I think it is a smart way to do it, because that's how we kind of internally, my team and I, learned about RPAs. It's so much easier. We can just grab, in coding. I joke with my programmer developers and today I joke with them that if it wasn't for people like me building all that code back in the years, they wouldn't have anything to do, because now they just copy and paste some code. Nobody writes original code anymore. It's everything's out there, especially object oriented.
Totally.
So the same thing here. It's just like leverage what UiPath already delivers and then learn from that, right? And then see if it gets you 50, 60, 80% of the way there, and maybe good enough is good enough, and then leverage the ability of folks to enhance it. But no, I mean, I think that's one reason why we went with UiPath after having established or researched other RPAs, is just the ease of implementation with the basics. So hopefully that answers your question. But no, once we realized that especially with the OCR, it wasn't going to work what we needed, that's where the document understanding really came in.
Excellent. And I had a couple questions come in from our readers prior to the presentation that I printed out, but I had one question for you. So at the very beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that you're just under 5,000 people and you run a lean shop. When you say lean, do you mind sharing approximate personnel numbers with the size of your IT department?
Yeah, no problem. So from a IT department, the way we're structured is we have central corporate global IT, which is what I run, and then we also have what we call regional IT, which are boots on the ground IT members at the various big regions. So, in New York, we have 2 or 3 IT team members, and in LA we have 1 or 2, in Mexico 1 or 2, and so we've kind of sure that there's people on the ground, and so my team that I manage oversee is about 40, and we have about another 15 or so out in the field that actually report to the line of business or the regions, but then have a dotted line back to us. So we're all working together. So total, we have about 50, 55 IT team members.
That's very lean. That's very lean in a 5,000 person organization. You think it'd be at least double that. So if you're keeping it that lean, you must always be on the lookout for efficiencies. So have you been in the past afraid of shadow IT? Have you embraced it? And how do you set up an entrepreneurial mindset with your team members who, I'm assuming, must bring ideas to you and say, hey, check this out or check that out. Let's try this. How do you set that up?
Well, I mean, I think it comes from having an open mind. I think, I've been at this firm over 6 years, and I've created, did what I was supposed to, create relationships. I became the person of yes, let's get this done, versus the IT person of. And so for the years, I've embraced shadow IT. Business Technology Group couldn't be considered shadow IT because they deal with technology too. And so it was really having a mindset of especially as technology became more consumerized, it's going to come in. And so there, as an IT professional or a CIO IT leader, you either embrace it or you're going to get run over. And so for my philosophy, even as a programmer back in the day, I was customer service oriented, and it was like, let's work together to solve a problem. So I've always embraced shadow IT, and folks come to us and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then the only thing I do is if I need to, and I haven't had to do it often, is use the cybersecurity arm if I ever need to shut something down or say, hey, I'm sorry, you really can't do that. And so I haven't had to do it much, but that's kind of what I use if I have to say, well, no, I need to shut you down a little bit. But aside from that, it's like, let's try it and let's figure out how to make the firm more efficient and work together.
It's so refreshing to hear, because a lot of our readers, they're cracked down on trying to do things. They're cracked down when they bring in something they worked on in their basement. They say, hey, boss, check this out. None of that here. But let's get to a couple of questions from our readers here. So let me give you an example of what one reader said to me. I'm going to try to condense it into a question. So a lot of my coworkers is from one of our readers, have had to move from paper-based systems to digital. And now they have to interact with automation. How do you soothe the skeptics inside your organization? So I guess, how do you prepare or communicate to people who are going to be impacted by automation? How do you set them up for a smooth transition as opposed for resistance, which some people, put up?
Yeah. Well, I think that, and I'll answer it in two ways. I think one is what I said earlier is treat this as not an employee replacement. Treat this as freeing up. Again, if you start the message just like with you, Steve, it's like, Steve, I know you and your team, you guys are always overloaded. You guys could never work enough hours, get caught up. Can we look at helping you to try to do something so that you free up some of your time, not to get rid of your people, but just free up your time. I think that's number one. Do that. I think you have to convince folks that this is not a play to cut staff or cut dollars. This is as the firm grows, as we grow, let's leverage the technology so that we don't have to make tough decisions or we don't have to hire additional staff. Let's automate what we can automate and free you up to do all the other cool, fun stuff that you want to do. So I think that's number one. I think the number two is the business technology group. If you can say, well, no, I can't digitize my team in investment management. This is what we got to do. But I've got someone over here who lived investment management and can say, nope, that's not reality. Reality is you could do it. It just helps you. So having someone lived in those shoes. You said it earlier about me being a programmer. I've lived in those shoes, and when I speak to another programmer, I've got credibility because I lived in those shoes. If someone says I can't in another business line or business unit, and I've got someone on the BTG that lived that life, they can say, no, let's work together because I know you can do this and I know it'll work.
Excellent. I know we're coming up on half past the hour, so let's do one more question, and we've got a PDF to talk about in the last slide. So, have there been steps along your journey as you automated things that you realized you could also eliminate or streamline things out of a multi-step process? So how did some new projects surface these insights? So what could you eliminate, or how do you discover things you can eliminate and make it even easier, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've just scratched the surface on rolling out RPAs, but we already starting to see that because when you do have manual processes or you have to enter information into multiple systems, you basically, it's almost like you document your processes. That has to be the process because that's all you know, right? And so when you start, speaking to these folks and saying, okay, well, look at your process. You wrote your process because that's all you could do 15 years ago or 18 years ago, because technology, that's what it was. And you really haven't changed those processes. And you're still using the same old processes because of lack of technology. I think what you're going to see is I'll take the other previous example with the global records team. They had a lot of processes where they would do things every week, every month, because it took time, right? And that's their process. And so we were able to eliminate a lot of process, a lot of weekly, monthly, redundant work, running reports, looking at how the health of their system, looking at, files that are outdated. I mean, we were able to eliminate a lot of those processes because they were put in place because that's all they knew and that's all they could do. And so no, I mean, you will guarantee. But again, I think going back to the first question a minute ago, you asked, it's about the processes, not about the people. Never talk about eliminating the people. Talk about reducing the processes or eliminating some processes and providing value add, back to the people as opposed to eliminating the people. You never want to say that because I don't want to do that. Nobody ever wants to really, because we have really strong team members. And so let's leverage the team members to do more value add.
Yeah, it's hard enough to get good people nowadays, let alone keep them,
Exactly.
So if we could, I know it's half past the hour and we want to be as respectful as possible to the viewers. I'd love to just take a second here and do a quick highlight. If whoever's on this call, if you liked this presentation, we did a co-branded white paper with SmartBridge a few months ago that not only features Jesse, just like you've heard him detail his story, it also features 3 other CIOs in other areas, whether it's quick service restaurants or government agencies like State of Texas. So I'd recommend, if you like this as a starting off point, please feel free to dive in. And you can go to smartbridge.com/RPA today-white paper. And I'd also definitely like to mention that if you came in halfway during this presentation, or if you think, if you're on this, that another coworker or two would like to view it, we're going to work with SmartBridge to get this video live on their website in short order so you can watch it whenever it's convenient for you. So from my end, Jesse, I want to say thank you so much for making time. Any final words or thoughts before we wrap things up for those who are either beginning or just getting going in their internal projects with their companies?
Yeah, again, appreciate the opportunity. And I do want, again, SmartBridge has been a huge partner of ours for a lot of years. And I do want to get a shout out to a couple of team members, Raul, Sanad, and Tres, who really helped us on these projects. I mean, I can never thank them enough and the firm for that. And so I do want to thank them and thank you for that. I will say I'm still waiting for my free water burgers as part of this participation in this write up. So, I'm still waiting for it, but I hope it comes soon. But no, thank you again for the opportunity and looking forward to seeing other people's journey, and always open to having conversations with anybody online or who views this later. Look me up on LinkedIn, and happy to carry this conversation further.
You bet. Well, Jesse, thanks again. And for everyone here at RPA today, thank you so much for joining, and thanks so much for SmartBridge for coordinating it. We're going to end the presentation. Have a wonderful rest of the day.